Hey students, in this video I want to do a short video on how to graph a quadratic function on the computer. So let's take a look at this example from Khan Academy. So we see here the equation y equals negative 3 over 2x squared minus 6x. So the first thing I notice is that this is in standard form and I need 2 points to graph it. I need to know my vertex and one other point. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to a notepad and show you how to find the vertex. So the first thing we want to find is the axis of symmetry. To do that, we're going to use x equals negative b, or the opposite of b, divided by 2a. So I see my b is negative 6 and my a is negative 3 over 2. So b equals negative 6, and a equals negative 3 over 2. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is substitute those values into my equation, into my symmetry equation. So x equals, the opposite of 6 would give me 6, divided by 2 times negative 3 divided by 2. Okay guys, so I paused the video, went ahead and typed in the work for finding the axis of symmetry. So here I've substituted negative 3 over 2 for the a variable, and I've substituted 6, positive 6, because it's the opposite of b, for the numerator. Then I simplified my denominator. So 2 times negative 3 over 2 is negative 6 over 2, which simplifies down to negative 3, and 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. Now, this becomes the x part of my vertex. Now, to find my y part of my vertex, I'm going to plug that into the original equation. So let me go back and get that. Y equals negative 3 over 2x squared minus 6x. Y equals negative 3 over 2x squared minus 6x. Okay, so y equals negative 3 over 2 times negative 2 squared minus 6 times negative 2. Okay, I'm going to pause the video and do that simplification so we don't take up time you watching me type. Okay guys, so now I've simplified this expression. Negative 2 squared, remember you got to do your exponents first using the order of operations. So negative 2 squared becomes 4, and then negative 3 over 2 times 4 will be negative 12 over 2. Simply multiply the negative 3 and the 4, put it over the denominator of 2. I also simplified negative 6 times negative 2 and got a positive 12. Now I simplify negative 12 divided by 2 and I get negative 6, add 12, and the result is 6. So now I know my vertex is at negative 2, comma 6. Alright, now I'll go back to my graph and simplify that, or graph that. So negative 2 comma 6 would be left 2 and up 6. Now, I need this other point in order to graph this equation. The easiest point to graph is the y-intercept. So I'll go back to my scratch pad and find the y-intercept. Now the y-intercept is when x equals 0. So I'm going to plug 0 into my equation now. I'll just copy this down. And change this to 0. And when I simplify this, I find y equals 0 minus 0, which just simply equals 0. So my y-intercept is at 0 comma 0. Okay, let me go back to my graph. I'll plot that at 0 comma 0. And another thing to check while you're graphing these is if a is negative, remember, the graph turns upside down. It has a frown. All right, let's check it. All right, we got it right. Let's look at another question. Okay, h of x equals negative 1/3 x squared plus 2x minus 4. Now don't get confused by this h of x. That's just function notation and can be replaced with the variable y. The x is the input, h of x is the output. Very similar to x being the input and y being the output in earlier examples. I'm going to pause the video and work out what we need to graph this on scratch paper. Okay guys, so let's see how you find the axis of symmetry, vertex, and another point to graph on the computer. First I'm going to change the h of x into y and rewrite this equation. Next I'm going to find the axis of symmetry. To do that I'm going to use x equals negative b over 2a because this equation is in standard form. So I substitute the b with the opposite of 2. I substitute the a with negative 1/3. Simplify that. 2 times negative 1/3 is negative 2/3. And then to divide fractions, negative 2 divided by negative 2/3, I used the keep, flip, change method. So I kept the first number, flipped the fraction over, and changed it to multiplication. Next I'm going to multiply. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6 divided by 2. So x equals 3. Now remember, the 3 is the x value of the vertex. So now I just need to find the y value of the vertex. So I'm going to substitute that in my equation. 3 squared is 9. When I multiply that times negative 1/3, I get negative 3, because that's 9 times 1 divided by 3. We'll simplify the negative 3 plus 6 and get positive 3. Then I'll subtract 4 and get y equals negative 1. So our vertex is at 3, negative 1. Next, because this graph is not on the y-axis, I'm going to find my y-intercept. So to do that, I'm going to substitute 0 for x. The y-intercept is found on the y-axis, so that's when the value of x is 0. Next, I'll simplify this. 1/3 of 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 minus 4. So y equals negative 4. So my y-intercept is at 0 comma negative 4. Next, I'll go back to my graph and plot those points. Okay guys, so here I am back over at my graph, and I need to plot the vertex and the y-intercept for this graph. So, as you saw in the previous part on my scratch pad, I found that the vertex was at 3, negative 1, and that my y-intercept was at 0, negative 4. Now, let's do a visual check before we check this. The A term is negative. It opens downward. So I can rest assured this is probably correct. So let's check it. And yes, we find that it's correct. So guys, that concludes this short video on how to graph a quadratic function on the computer.